Hello, welcome everyone. I'm Councillor Chris Atwell, Cabinet Member for Central Services. Some housekeeping. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts. And please assemble in front of Queen Victoria's statue in Guildhall Square. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust fire marshal regulations, anyone who's signed in, nobody signed in, we'll move on. May I draw your attention to the fact that this meeting is being live streamed and everybody speaking is going to be on camera, will be on camera. Members of the press and public are also permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those explicitly stating they do not wish to be recorded. Please can you use your microphones and remember to switch them off when you have finished. Let's do some introductions. Over to my colleagues in the front row.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor George Fielding, Labour Group spokesperson.
Good afternoon, George. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Councillor Derek North for Independent Party.
Good afternoon, Derek. And officers present. Thank you, Lydia.
Natasha Edmonds, Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, Natasha.
Richard Locke, Assistant Director of Procurement.
Thank you, Richard.
Good afternoon, Chair. Richard Lee, Assistant Director of Culture, Leisure and Regulatory Services.
And good afternoon, Richard.
Alison Harper, Local Democracy Officer.
Thank you, Alison. Apologies for absence? No apologies? Okay, all right. Members, declarations of interest for this afternoon's meeting. Minutes of the last meeting. George, you were here. Are you happy with them? Okay, I shall sign afterwards. Okay, to today's substantive business, provision of community funerals. Oh no, you want to go first? Do apologise. Do apologise. I can see the slight look of like panic. No, you already said, Natasha. Sorry, community inclusion grant, and we have some exciting news.
Thank you, and thank you also for the opportunity to adjust the agenda so I can go first.
I don't do it very often, but there you are. Okay.
So just to provide a verbal update that the applications for community inclusion grants for this year have now been determined. Just to say that there will be the grant recipients that have been successful will be communicated with after this meeting. We'll start to get in touch with them all. Just to note that of the applications that we received 67, so there's a lot of good community work going on in the city. Just to note that 13 of the successful applicants were ones that had previously had a grant. 3 were ones that had previously applied but had been unsuccessful, so nice to see that they have been successful this time. And 14 applications had come through from organisations that had not previously applied, so a nice range of new projects for community-focused activity. Each of them applying for up to £1,000, so that's 30 organisations in total, and the full allocation being awarded to projects in the community. So, as I say, all of the applicants will be communicated after this meeting, monies will start to be distributed and projects got underway.
Thank you, Natasha. 67 applicants that's great, isn't it? 67 applications. So thank you to everyone in comms for getting the message out to people and to groups around the city. Thank you to everybody who has been involved in the collation of the applications, the scoring. That's a mountain of work on top of the day job. So hugely grateful to everyone who's been involved in the process to date. It's my great fortune, of course, sitting in this seat. I get to go out and meet some of these people, and I'd encourage others to maybe go and find out what people are doing with this money around the city. It's really impressive, isn't it, the range of, I know that the list hasn't been published yet, but when you see the range of work that's going on in the city, people delivering work that makes our city a more inclusive and welcoming place, it's super impressive. So thank you very much to everyone, and thank you for being able to be here to give us the information at this meeting. It's nice to be able to share that. that news here. Members, any questions or comments about the community inclusion grants? This is our third go at it, and it seems to be going rather well, I think.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say thank you to the officers for the time that's been spent in getting this up and running again, and 67 applicants is a really good indication as to the good work that's going on across the city, but also 14 new applicants as well shows that there's demand there for grants where we're able to do that. Just one question, does that take us up to the total allocation for the Community Inclusion Grant Fund? And if not, is it going to carry over to other ventures?
Natasha.
Yes, based on the applications received, the total fund was £30,000. The successful applicants take us to £29,850.65. So there's not a lot left over from that.
We always want to spend this allocation, of course. We want to get the money out, so yes, to make sure we use almost every penny of it. But so yeah, and that £30,000 is going a long way. And when you start to see the work that the individual projects are delivering, you know, the value added to the city is enormous, I think. So it's good work by everyone. Thank you. Thank you very much, Natasha. Shall we go back to the agenda? Thank you. Richard, over to you. Community funerals.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you for the opportunity to be raising this important subject matter again. I last presented in 2023 and previously in 2019. The purpose of the information report is to provide an update on our statutory duty to provide a community funeral service. Its focus is to take responsibility, Portsmouth City Council has a responsibility for a deceased person when no other person or third party is willing or able to facilitate a funeral on their behalf. Our responsibilities in respect to such applies to anyone who dies within the city boundary. And of course we have a large regional hospital which somewhat adds to the demand for the service. Absolutely key, and I might reiterate this point several times during the next couple of minutes, is that this function is to provide a very dignified and very appropriate funeral for any person falling under our care. That is our absolute priority. I have, however, set out our guiding principles in section 3. The demands for the function are detailed with lists and graphs and tables as set out in section 4, but just to focus on one or two of the key areas, the demand for this service has continued to increase over a period of 10 years since roughly I took over responsibility for the service. Record keeping before that time might have not been quite what it is now. Increases year on year are shown in the tables. There has been some general fluctuations. We peaked in the year of COVID, but last year, 24-25, was the second highest demand for a community funeral, with 67 funerals being delivered during that period. That is a reflection of when we first started recording our data about 20 years ago, and it was at a level of below 20 funerals per year. So percentage increases are very high indeed. I have tried to set out some idea as to why the demand for the service may be increasing in section 6. And it's really important for me to say that whilst our focus is absolutely on the dignity for the deceased, it is very important that I talk about the second part of the service, which is to reduce the cost upon the Portsmouth taxpayer by recovering the cost of the funeral. Each funeral costs approximately £1,800. And all funerals, I think it's very important to say, all funerals are delivered in a manner which is not dissimilar to any funeral undertaken by any other provider. If you were there at the time, you would not notice any difference in the way that the funeral is managed. Some key deliverables are not only the dignified funeral, but also the manner in which we recover the costs of the funeral from the estate of the deceased. Now, this is quite a complex process. We do property searches, for example, for details of financial records, those sorts of things. And once we found a bank account or institutions which the deceased may have been paying into or having some sort of benefits from, we then contact those financial institutions, explain our powers under the legislation to recover those costs. But those costs can take a significant amount of resource to actually obtain. And I made slight reference within the report that it can take months for us to do a cost recovery process. So the increasing demand over the years has impacted upon our ability to recover costs. But I have set out a table which sets out the percentages in section 7. Our delivery of the community funeral is detailed. We have a contracted funeral director through a procurement process, and it is very precise on what is expected of the funeral director. But I've set out a summary of our processes in section 8, and I'd be very happy to answer any questions if there is detail, further detail which is required, or further explanation is required to those bullet points I've listed. In summary, there is significant pressure on this service because of the increasing demand. And in section 9, I've tried to explain that demand, and it's based really about the amount of resource we currently have to deliver this service. Now, we benefit from an extremely competent officer who's delivering this function, but that officer is only 0.6 of an FTE. So what that officer needs to do is to pull in resources from other areas of regulatory services, which the team are very happy to provide. But obviously it places a strain and a stress on those other areas which is effectively the day job of those officers. So there's a difficult juggling of need for the service based around the resources that we have. The service is budgeted to recover a deficit based on an estimate of 56 funerals per year and a recovery rate of 83%. I've said already that last year we had 67 funerals, and therefore that cost recovery mechanism is again under pressure. As demand, in summary, very briefly, as the demand has increased upon the service, obviously we've got to apply additional resources to it, and the cost recovery is at risk. Nevertheless, I provide you with an absolute assurance that to you as a portfolio holder, that we will continue to provide a wholly dignified funeral for all who fall under our care, and that is our aim moving forward. As previously mentioned, if further detail is required, very happy to take questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Richard. Thank you for the report. This is an incredibly important service, and it's been my great privilege to actually attend a community funeral, and the whole thing from start to finish is done with enormous amount of care and thought, and given the pressures that you're under, it's an extraordinary thing that you and the person who delivers this service does. And we recover some of the costs as well, which is in very difficult circumstances. It's quite an extraordinary service, and I know that you will continue to deliver at that high standard despite these pressures that you're facing. I just thank you. Members, any questions or comments on Richard's report?
Just to say a great thank you for the service that you provide and the amazing work that you're doing. Just keep it up. Thank you.
I mean, George, do you want to?
No, I'd just echo that. It's something that you have to be very, very sensitive about because of the circumstances that people often find themselves in. Cost of living being what it is, and the cost of funerals themselves going up in price. generally, the fact we're able to offer this is of paramount importance to support those people who go through life and aren't able to have the funds at the end to have the dignified service and departure that they deserve. So the fact that we're able to recover a significant amount of that, despite running in deficit, I think goes to show the strength of the service and the resilience of the officer who provides that. It just, it's quite moving.
You know, we had a conversation very recently about this. There's an astonishing number in this report about the cost of dying. £10,000. It's an extraordinary amount of money, isn't it? But what a great privilege that we are able to be there for people who need us in that moment. Thank you to you. Obviously, you and your team, you and the person, the 0.6, which, you know, that is extraordinary that this is pretty much delivered by 0.6 per person in the service. Extraordinary. Thank you so much. And thank you for the report. No, please do from all of us. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. To the other Richard. Procurement.
Thank you, Chair. Report I've brought today is a general information only report, so it provides high-level summary of the changes that have come into public sector procurement via the introduction of the Procurement Act, which came into place on 24th of February. The subsequent changes that we've made to our own rules to bring us into line with the Act, to make sure that we're in a position to exploit some of those flexibilities, and also to help sharpen our local practice, and a forward plan of work we've got over the next year that me and my team will be doing to fully implement the Act, the new CPRs, and get to a position where once we're implemented through on those, we can actually really start to realise the benefits, look at our policy and what we do to take things forward with confidence. So in terms of the Procurement Act, it's been in the mix for quite some time. There was consultation that happened back in 2020 during the pandemic, green paper that was published due to various other things that were taking up the time of Parliament. It was being delayed numerous times, but finally came into force on 24th of February. It sets out in the paper the key objectives that the government's seeking to work to on this, so creating a simpler and more flexible commercial system that meets the country's needs whilst remaining compliant with international obligations. So previously, the regulations we worked to under European Union directives, they were very rigid and fixed, very certain way in which you had to do things, a lot more flexibility in some cases here. More of a focus towards opening up to new entrants and small businesses, voluntary community sector, and significantly increased transparency throughout the whole cycle. So previously very focused upon making sure we issue an advert to invite tenders, undertake that process, inform who we've awarded a contract to, and then it kind of stopped from there. This really goes the whole way through from the initial business case, looking at the options, engaging with the market to look at the different options, then deciding what you're going to procure, procuring that, awarding the contract, and then managing the contract, and all very subject to high levels of transparency, so the taxpayer can see what is going on throughout the whole life of a contract, not just for a snapshot on the procurement process. So in terms of other aspects that have come in, so one of the reasons that it was delayed again, it was a delay that came through in September before the original October date, was the National Procurement Policy Statement. We've now seen that, it's outlined here. A lot of focus towards social value and some of the government's missions in terms of helping people back into work. a lot of focus towards making more opportunities available for smaller organisations, voluntary community sector organisations, maximising what we do to act commercially. So having sight of the National Procurement Policy Statement actually means that we know what we need to give regard to ourselves now. It also tells us what we have to do and what we have flexibility to do locally to devise our own procurement policy in the future. So that's covered off in the report there as well. In terms of our new rules, part of the report sets out the key changes that we've had to make to bring us into line with the Act. It also sets out for information here why we have to legally have these rules in and some of the potential consequences that we could face if we don't follow them, which obviously increases as the value of the contracts that we're letting increase, and also sets out some of the further things that we're seeking to do to sharpen up our own practice here. So, for instance, at national level, reporting on contract management performance only kicks in at £5 million. We want to have better practice at a much lower level than that, so we've been reporting on contract performance for some time, and we're going to be doing that from £150,000 upwards to give better assurance. Pipeline reports, government requires us to do a re-tendering pipeline from £2 million upwards. We'll do ours from a much lower level to help us better plan. So it sets out some of the more local improvements that we're seeking to make through the CPRs are in the report, and also sets out a high-level summary of the work that we now need to do over this next year. We've done a lot of work leading into this. There's a lot of work still to do to implement and practice, and that work's never going to disappear. We want to keep improving and refining what we do. And I think as we come through the first year of the Act coming in and people get more confident, that's where we want to be ready to actually start exploiting some of these additional flexibilities and taking a broad step forwards.
Thank you. I mean, this is the biggest, if you turn, thank you. I mean, this is the biggest change in procurement rules for a long time, isn't it? So, I mean, this changes everything for you. So, thank you very much for your team. As you just said in your presentation, I know an enormous amount of work has been going on to get to this point, and then you've been delayed and etc. But it's here, and now you're using the new rules, and we have some quite big contracts coming up.
So we've got some pretty big contracts coming up. We've got electric vehicle charge points, so under the levy fund coming forwards. We'll be out to procure on that later in the summer. We're currently out doing the market engagement, and that will significantly increase the electric vehicle charging provision across the city over a period of 5 years, and that's all going to be let under the new Act. So other big ones we have is the housing gas servicing contract, which is coming up as well, and other big housing contracts coming forwards. So we've got quite a pipeline of work. What we've been careful to do is ensure that in the early months of the Act coming in, that we're not issuing great big procurements to begin with, just because we don't want to be the guinea pig which potentially comes a cropper if there's any gremlins still in the system. So touch wood, we haven't really found much of that. There's a few kind of teething problems, but nothing that's been of any significance. And I think we're now in a position to act confidently and move forwards with some really big contracts that will be tendered in the coming months.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the Act is good in that it gives us more flexibility, doesn't it? And as you, well, I don't want to repeat what you just said, but it gives us the opportunity to work with SMEs and voluntary community sector. And I couldn't get through this meeting without talking about social value. So all of those things are really important. I was at the Lido earlier in the week, of course, and there's some great social value pieces going on that the Act helps us to deliver through social value and getting people back into work, of course, really important. Thank you so much to you, and again, your team, unsung heroes really at the council, because you're doing all this stuff and people don't really sort of see it. So I'm really grateful that you're here this afternoon to talk about the Procurement Act, which we spend a lot of money. How much have we spent?
We spend somewhere between 250 to 300 million pounds. So about half of what we deliver is via third-party suppliers. So if we're not procuring and managing the contracts properly, we're not effectively running the council properly. So it's pretty
absolutely
important.
So you're absolutely unsung heroes, and thank you very much for all the work you and your team do. Members, any comments or questions about the procurement report? George?
Yeah, far be it for me to want to be on the record for saying this, but this is one of the benefits of Brexit, if you would like. The fact that we're entering a new era of procurement with more of a focus on the local community and companies locally under the National Procurement Policy Statement is to be encouraged, because we've seen across the country what happens when you invest locally, the benefits that you get back as a result of that in terms of economic growth. So yeah,
And if we can keep as much of the 250
the
million pounds,
Portsmouth pound.
yeah, the Portsmouth pound, there you go, locally, and the social value stuff is the great way to do that. And you know, yeah, our contracts with people like ComServe and Mountjoy and things. Yeah, it's good, isn't it? And we're able to kind of monitor these contracts much better through the new acts. So it's brilliant. Thank you very much, Richard, for you and your team and all the work the hours and hours and hours and hours of work that it's taken to get to this point. Thank you very much. Thank you. Is there anything else? No? Good. Okay. You are free to leave, Richard, unless you want to stay. For Lydia.
Thank you.
Hello, Lydia.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. So my report was an information report to update you on some of the changes that I've made over the last 12 months at the Portsmouth Register Service in order to improve customer service, essentially. So the main focus really has been so the last 12 months has been kind of updating processes and procedures, as well as modernising and enhancing some of the physical environment. So that's included things like we now set our non-statutory fees for 2 years in advance, rather than previously it was just 12 months in advance. So now customers are able to plan and prepare more. They have a budget that they can work to their budget without having to wait a year until we set another set of fees, particularly those that are planning marriage and civil partnership ceremonies. As you can imagine, quite a lot of people book those in advance. I've also added a certificate fee to the marriage and civil partnership ceremony fees, because obviously everyone's going to want a certificate following their ceremony anyway, so it just makes sense that they pay that up front. They don't then have additional costs once they've completed their ceremony. I have also increased ceremony fees on Thursdays and Fridays. So Fridays and Saturdays were particularly busy days for ceremonies. We're seeing a trend that Thursdays are now equally as popular, so the fees have been increased to reflect that, and sort of help with a bit of income into the service, which is then spent to help improve the service further. We're seeing an increased number of new British citizens coming through, so we've now we're setting additional ceremonies as standard so that we can meet the required the ceremony. They need to attend a ceremony within 3 months of receiving their naturalisation certificate from the Home Office. So we're now adequately able to meet that. That doesn't look like it's a trend that's going to change, which is great for the city. So it's positive that we can accommodate that for those people. We've introduced birth registrations up at Queen Alexandra Hospital. So obviously, being based in the south of the city, we're not particularly accessible to residents in the north of the city, and obviously the hospital is a regional hospital, so plenty of babies born there from the surrounding area, and it can cost a fair bit of money to come from sort of Gospel Fair and Havant into the city to register their baby. So we're now offering that service up at the hospital, which has proved extremely popular, and it's really nice to have that service there for new parents. We've completed garden renovations over the last year. The parks team have done a fantastic job at taking out all the non-native and invasive species. We've worked with the countryside officer to increase the biodiversity in the garden space. So it's really starting to come out and look great, which is really good for customers in terms of not just the ceremony photographs, but also as a reflective space for people that come to register deaths, for example. I've knocked down a wall, which has created
Intentionally?
yes,
Okay.
intentionally. It created a nice big collaborative space for the team. So as you're aware, the building's an old building with very sort of individual rooms in, doesn't really lend itself to team working, which is really important when you're dealing with some of the situations that the team do deal with on a day-to-day basis. So that will have increased productivity there. We made some enhancements in the ceremony room, lick of paint, new carpets, reupholstering, just kind of given the room a real freshen up, which seeing the feedback has been really positively received, which is good. We've introduced a customer feedback survey over the last 2 months, and the feedback there has been overwhelmingly positive. So that's really lovely to hear. But it's now there that we can pick up if there are any negative feedback or improvements to be made. We can pick that up in a timely manner now. We've had some regulatory changes that we've implemented really successfully. So the main one was the death certification reforms back in September 2024, which saw the role of the medical examiner become a statutory provision. It also saw some changes to the actual medical certificates themselves, which was quite a significant change to our processes. But I think the fact that we've got really strong relationships with the medical examiners, the medical examiner officers, and the bereavement team at the hospital is we've worked really well to embed that. So that's really positive, and there's been no impact on the customer service for that. So that's sort of the last 12 months. The next 12 months, I'm going to focus more on the digital side of the business. I've already restructured the web pages. We're going to look at simplifying the content over the coming months. Also going to look at implementing some various systems to improve efficiency, both for customers and for the team. So there's online booking of birth and death appointments, for example. And also we are seeing a significant increase in requests for copies of birth certificates in particular, now that the passport office are asking for proof of grandparents as well as parents now. So those are obviously the older certificates, which are handwritten. So there's some software out there that we can scan those in, which will just make processing those much more efficient. We have a new registration system coming into place. The General Register Office are introducing the digital registration system. We will onboard with that next month now, and that will be the start of a bit of a digital transformation of registration, probably over the next kind of 5-10 years really, and that will be initiated with the digital bill, which will hopefully go through next year, and that will see the removal of wet signatures again. So in a similar way to how we process deaths during COVID, we'll be able to do that, a revised process of that, more robust process over the telephone with people, which I think is another welcome change by a lot of customers. I'm looking at upgrading the IT infrastructure, installing Wi-Fi and getting individual laptops for the team, which will enable a lot more efficiencies to be made. I'm also simplifying the signage in and outside of the building, just to help customers with the navigation, because obviously they're heightened emotions as it is, so making anything we can make simpler, the better. And then that will all lead into a longer term plan of improving communications, branding, brochures, online content, that sort of thing. That's kind of where we're at.
There's lots happening. And actually that's very much down to you coming into post and bringing these ideas and energy with you. And, people are nodding. Thank you on our behalf. I think that the registration service at the QA is just brilliant, isn't it? I mean, to be able to register a birth before you leave the hospital is, everybody wins. Actually, you picked up, I couldn't get through this meeting without mentioning the citizenship ceremonies that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of recently. The team at the Registry Office just do an amazing job. And in those really important moments in people's lives, just know what to do and how to play it. It's a really impressive operation. Thank you very much for everything you do around that. It's interesting you see the numbers, of course, and you're having to do more citizenship ceremonies, and that's, you say that's not going to change, I suspect. But that's an incredible thing. The feedback is always really good, isn't it? Customer satisfaction, which is very impressive given the nature of the work that you do, and you see people at the most devastating times in their lives, and also the happiest. I mean, it's an extraordinary range of emotions that you're dealing with at any one moment. Certificate fees also really smart and a really welcome, I think, thing to do. Again, for everyone benefits from that, really. And thank you for the work you're doing. The building looks great. The outside space looks brilliant, and an increase in biodiversity is always welcome, particularly down right down in that part of the city. It's a very welcome addition. So thank you for the report. Thank you to, please do pass my best regards to the team. You have an exceptional team, and you have two new registrars that have just joined, and it sounds like that's all going well as well. Also, Lydia, I don't know if you caught it at the top of the meeting. This is being superintendent registrar is only part of what Lydia does for us in the city. Also manages to keep events, all the plates going with events, and we are just coming into event season, aren't we? So you're incredibly busy. So I'm grateful for your time this afternoon. Members, questions, comments? Derek?
I have a few comments, just amazing work. A bit of feedback from the hospital for you. I've got friends, relatives work up there. They said absolutely amazing for the registration side of it. They just turned around and said it's absolutely great fun up there now, and they really enjoy the fact that they can literally have the birth, get it registered. They haven't got to worry, then it's all done. So it's just outstanding work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lydia. I'll let you get back to your mountain of emails and other things that you have probably clocked up while you've been sitting there. Unless there is anything else, members, are you happy for me to close the meeting at, this monitor says 15:40, but Councillor Fielding will tell me it is 2 minutes earlier than that? Yeah. 15:38. Thank you, everyone.